I love grapes.
Hey ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Strength for Tomorrow Radio. I'm Stuart Thompson, you are you. It is Friday, well it's actually Tuesday, but I have to pretend it's Friday because that's whenever the show's released. Hope you're having a great September and you're keeping well. Hope that you've had a good week of training. If you've skipped training, I hope you feel guilty now because I've just mentioned it. I'm just kidding, don't worry about it, everyone has a week off. Just get back on the wagon, okay? So our most listened to show has been The Truth About Fat Loss, which is quite near the start. It's by far our most popular show, and today we're going to think exclusively about women's fat loss. Why? Well, because women are taking over the world. I'm just joking. Because men and women are different. And I know that might come as a surprise to some of you. It might even shock and offend some of you. All I'm going to say on the matter before this devolves into a political statement is don't shoot the messenger. So because of the verifiable fact that women are in fact different from men, it means that we also experience different challenges whenever it comes to fat loss. So it's true, men and women experience different challenges whenever it comes to fitness, nutrition, health, body composition, all sorts of things. Although this specific show is for the ladies, there will be some helpful information in there for the lads as well, which it might help correct some of the myths. It might give you a better understanding of the unique struggles that women experience whenever it comes to healthy weight loss and the change in their body composition in a positive and an encouraging way. Although I should warn you, if the lady in your life happens to ask, do these jeans make me look fat, dear? Your answer should always be no. You should always answer it within 0.2 seconds of the question being asked. And if you happen to answer it before she's actually finished asking the question, that's even better. The answer should never be, well, you're only about, 25% body fat, so I wouldn't worry. Never answer it like that. So, some of these will be biological impacts, some of them will be psychological. Either way, they are important and significant factors, and they should be considered by both men and women. So stick around, enjoy the show. If you have any questions, do send them in to info@crossfunctionalfitness.co.uk. We've got joke of the week, we've got a news article of the week to round up as well. So yeah, hope you enjoy. So the first thing to get your head around when it comes to this topic, and we delved into this in quite a bit of detail, is the truth about weight loss, okay? That not all weight loss is good, and not all weight gain is bad necessarily. This is the one message that is often lost whenever it comes to health, fitness, nutrition, and we need to be extremely clear. Not all weight loss is good and not all weight gain is bad. Now, what do I mean by that? So if you think of it this way, you might be a lady that is 5'6". You might weigh like 140 pounds. Yet in 1 year, you could still weigh 140 pounds, still be 5'6". You're a fully grown adult, of course, yet your body could look dramatically different. So what would the difference be? How does that happen? This really confuses people sometimes. The difference is your body composition. So your body composition, and again we talked about this in the fat loss episode, that the truth about fat loss, we went into it in great detail. Listen back to that show if you want to get your head around it, or listen to this whole idea and much more get padded out. But body composition is basic whenever your body is made, whatever your body is made up of. You could be 140 pounds and have 40% body fat, yet in 1 year you could potentially still be 140 pounds and have 18% body fat, and you would look incredibly different. You would look phenomenally different. 40% body fat for men and women is generally too high. 18% is quite low for ladies. It's pretty good for men, but you will look incredibly different. So the difference is how does it stay at 140 pounds? So even though zero weight loss occurred on the scales, body fat has been reduced and it will dramatically change the shape of your body, and this is because of a couple of factors at play: muscle gain and fat loss, otherwise known as toning. Heard that word right? I want to get toned up. We use it all the time, don't we? We say it to our friends all the time. So this doesn't mean that you look like the Incredible Hulk or you turn into a bodybuilder, and it certainly is not an easy process. But in 1 year, an incredible transformation is possible. If you've never done a pick before, you've never trained, you've never thought about nutrition, you've just kind of went through the motions and ate whatever and without giving it a second thought. It simply means that the layer of fat tissue underneath the skin, above the muscle, has been reduced, and your muscle tissue underneath has increased. And overall, you've become firmer, because let's face it, fat jiggles, doesn't it? Fat wobbles, fat jiggles. Muscle, bit harder, bit denser, bit firmer. So this will give you the appearance of weight loss, and your friends will be like, "Oh my goodness, you've lost so much weight," and you'll be like, "Oh no, actually, I'm the same weight. I'm still 140 pounds. Hasn't changed." And your friends won't believe you. Like, yeah, right. You're skinny and all this here. Skinny's a bad word, by the way. We shouldn't use that word. I know it's a terrible word. It's not. It's a negative word if you ask me. Maybe you didn't ask me, but just my 2 cents. But this will give you the appearance of weight loss, and your friends will not believe you. And if you told them that you've lost absolutely no weight in the scales, you actually have to jump on the scales to prove to them that you haven't lost any weight. That you're exact same weight. You were 140 pounds a year ago, and you're still 140 pounds today. The difference, though, is your muscle tone. Is your muscle has increased. It's got harder, it's got firmer, you've got stronger, and you've got rid of significant amount of fat. So that, in theory, that is possible. Now, if you happen to be 5'6" and you are 40% body fat and you're 140 pounds, and you're trying to prove me wrong, the actual numbers might be different, but do you get the point? The point is the exact same, okay? You can lose weight, you can lose fat and stay the same weight. That is entirely possible. So, women especially worry about the scales, I find, and again, I'm generalising, but a lot of women do. Thankfully, more and more are starting to realise that the scales are not the be all or the end all. They're one metric, they're one measurement, but they're not everything. There's so many other things you can measure to see if progress is taking place or not. So what to do? Don't worry too much about what the scales are telling you. That's the first thing. Just put it in place of how important it is. It's not as important as what maybe your parents told you, maybe your grandparents told you, maybe your cousins or your sisters told you. It's not as important, okay? It's not that important. It is one area, yes, we can use the data from it to kind of figure out what's going on, but it's not the exclusive, it's not the only data point to use. They will lie to you, okay? They will fluctuate, and in the next number of points in the show, we will discuss how and why that happens. If you want to track your progress and see if you're getting closer to whatever your goal is, and just saying something like toning up, we've touched on this as well, setting goals. If you just say, I want to tone up or I want to lose weight, those are not particularly helpful goals, because how do you know you've reached it? How much weight's too much weight? Or someone saying, I want to get down to whatever, 10 stone or 9 stone, I want to lose X amount of pounds. Very simply, you can go to the toilet and lose X amount of pounds, okay? To be crude about it and straight to the point, okay? Get the picture. But I would recommend that you get a tape measure. Measure things. Where is it you store most of your body fat? That unnecessary weight. I think that's what we're talking about, is the unnecessary weight. The weight that you think you could get rid of, and you'd be happier, you'd be healthier, and you'd be more mobile, and you'd fit in your clothes better. So for guys, that tends to be kind of chest and belly area. For ladies, that tends to be a lot of time around the waist and around the hips. Now, not always, but that's, again, I'm generalising. So take those measurements of those places wherever you struggle the most, wherever you feel that you put on weight the easiest. Measure them, and whenever you start losing fat, you'll start knowing if you're getting closer to your goal. Do this every 2 weeks. Follow up on it. Do it more regularly if you want, but don't obsess over it, okay? It is a really good way of measuring progress, so it's a more truthful measurement, and you can use it along with the scales. So if the scales are kind of telling lies to you or confusing you, stick the tape measure on and see how you're going. You might have made more progress than you realise. Progress pictures are another thing. Keep them private. All the problem is, I suppose, with hacks and things these days. Unless you're a celebrity, of course, maybe it's not an issue. But iCloud hacks and things. People get into your phone. People get into your pictures. People hacking your email. Keep your progress pictures yourself, okay? Now, hopefully you aren't doing them naked in the first place, but just do them for yourself. Keep them private. Don't have to post them on social media. You don't have to go get a spray tan before you do before and afters. You don't have to get a wax. On that topic, do you ever see some before and after pictures, right? And they'll be like, I don't really take the mick out of other PTs, but some of them do this, right? And you'll see the before one, they're all sad, they're all pale, and if they're guys, they're all hairy, and the lighting's not great. And then in the next one, 3 weeks later, they'll have a spray tan. You're like, oh my goodness, does your PT do spray tans as well? Does he do waxes? Look at that chest. It looks all chiseled now because of the hair's gone. Do you know what I mean? Or he's a lighting. He sells lights as well. He works for JR Lighting. My word, he's an electrician. Do you know what I mean? They kind of spruce all those things up and make the after picture look spectacular. And yes, there might have been some progress made, but sorry, that's just a pet peeve, and it's kind of funny. It's a funny one for me, but yeah, use lots of other. Be consistent though. Whenever you're using all these different metrics, be consistent. So if the lighting's crap in the first one and you're kind of hunched over and letting everything hang out, why change that for one that you're going to do a couple of weeks later? You know, be honest with yourself, be truthful, and you'll see more progress that way, and you'll not be up and down and disappointed one week and, you know, really pleased with yourself or deluded the next time. Just be honest about it, and if you'll be able to see then if what you're doing is working or not, or if you need to do something else. So the second issue we're going to talk about when it comes to women's weight loss or women's fat loss is your cycle, so your menstrual cycle. It's something that becomes important whenever you're thinking about the weighing scales, because your body weight can fluctuate by several pounds over the course of your cycle, and that normally peaks just before menstruation. So if you're working out and watching nutrition, you can really be lining yourself up for disappointment if you're only looking at the scales as a reflection of your progress. If you want to get slimmer, I would say it's really wise to track your cycle as well as your calories and your workouts. If you want to get your true weight, it's best to weigh yourself every day for a week, add it up, then divide by 7. So that can be something which seems a bit obsessive or a bit out of the ordinary, but is looking at your phone 48,000 times a day obsessive? Yes, probably. Is it good for you? Probably not. But I think looking at the scales once a day, every day during the week, is not going to be a big step. Obviously, don't do it in an obsessive manner. Don't read into it too much, but add it up, use it as data, and as I said, divide by 7. Then you get your true weight. You'll get your average weight. It'll take into account the fluctuations, up a pound, down a pound, etc., and you can average that out across the week or across the month. There's loads and loads of phone apps you can use to track your cycle as well. Not that I use them. So don't forget to take that into consideration if you're tracking your weight. Track your menstrual cycle as well, and basically add up the dots, line up all the dots, and then you'll get a true picture of what's actually going on. Now, whenever I'm personal training, I don't track my clients' menstrual cycles, funnily enough, because that's a bit weird, be a bit creepy, but I would encourage you to do it yourself. So why does your body weight fluctuate so much? Water retention can massively impact your scale weight whenever you're in your cycle, and that's because of hormonal changes. So before your period starts, estrogen and proestrogen levels decrease dramatically, and that signals the start of menstruation. So estrogen and proestrogen also control how your body regulates fluid. So the tissues in your body accumulate more water as these hormones fluctuate, and this causes water retention. Water retention can result in your breast, stomach, and extremities getting swollen, and this will increase your scale weight, and this is the but, not your body fat. Okay, so your body fat does not get an extra layer just because you're in your cycle. At a certain stage, okay, it's water weight, it's water retention. So this is a really important difference to understand, and whenever you weigh yourself at this stage in your cycle, they say water retention actually affects about 92% of women who menstruate, so it's really, really common side effect. It's something that is it's more common to have it than not to have it. So the second issue then when it comes to weight loss and your cycle is magnesium, or the lack thereof. So whenever your period starts, your magnesium levels start to decrease, and this can instigate, the sugar cravings that you get, chocolate, all that, and then the extra calories that you consume, then they can obviously contribute to weight gain. It comes back to the old law of energy in, energy out, calories in, calories out, which is fundamental. So if you are taking more calories than you actually need, then yes, weight will actually go up in the wrong way. So magnesium, it helps to regulate your body's hydration. So whenever this drops, it will cause dehydration. Seems like a sensible link. One of the probably the most profound yet simple tips I give my personal training clients, especially the ones who want to lose weight or get slimmer, is to make sure to drink some water whenever they feel hungry. Why is that? Well, you know the feeling you get, oh, I've got a really empty stomach, I'm starving, I need to eat a horse, and you can just jump in and start eating junk food or start eating like a huge meal. But before you do that, I would encourage you to drink a lot of water. Like drink a couple of glasses, drink like 1 glass, 2 glass, whatever. See if that solves anything. And most of the time it does, because those hunger pangs that you get in your stomach where you feel really empty, it's dehydration. You don't have enough liquid, you don't have enough fluid in you, and this can also make you crave something sweet, which leads to those extra unnecessary calories being consumed. So something to think about whenever you do feel that. And another issue to consider is digestion. So during your cycle, issues such as constipation, diarrhea, abdominal pain, they can all be caused by hormonal changes. And this bloating and uneasiness in your stomach and your tummy can often lead you to feel like you've gained weight, even though you actually haven't increased in body fat. As we said, scale weight might go up, but it's water retention largely. So after about a week before your period, prostrogen increases, which impairs your intestinal muscles' ability to contract. So you can't contract your tummy muscles as tightly or as well as you can at other times. So this results in slower digestion and ultimately constipation, unfortunately. So as your period begins, your uterus releases prostaglandins, and this is from yourhormones.info, this little snippet of information. Prostaglandins are a group of lipids made at sites of tissue damage or infection that are involved in dealing with injury and illness. They control processes such as inflammation, blood flow, and the formation of blood clots, and the induction of labour. So prostaglandins cause muscle contractions in your gut and uterus, which can cause pelvic and abdominal pain. They also cause diarrhea due to disruptions in electrolyte and fluid balance within the small intestine. All of this can alter your scale weight and your own perception of your weight due to the mixture of feelings that it can produce. So there's a lot of things going on there physically, but also psychologically. It kind of plays tricks on you. So it's something to think about. It's something to be aware of. I know it's kind of going into the gory details a little bit, but hey, we're all adults. Hopefully we're all adults listening to this. But yeah, hopefully that explains it a little bit better what's happening, and it's not, I guess when you're in the middle of it, again, speaking as a man, we have no right to comment on it, but it's funny how our mind can sometimes play tricks on us, even whenever we know what's happening. We know the process, we might know it inside out, but your hormones are all over the place, and you can kind of feel something that's not actually happening, and it can feel worse. But hopefully that actually helps to dispel that, and just keep listening to this again if you do feel like you're putting on weight, or you're putting on body fat, which is not actually happening. So as we chatted about already, cravings, they are caused by hormonal changes. It's not just you being greedy. It's not just something that you're making up. It happens. It's caused by hormonal changes, and it encourages you to overeat. Now, as a guy, I wish I had that excuse, to be honest with you. I don't want any other side effects, but I kind of want that excuse to be able to say, yes, my hormonal changes that are causing me to be a big slob and eat everything in sight. But about a week before your period, your prostrogen levels will increase, stimulating your appetite, and this causes you to desire more food than usual. As regardless your size, your shape, or your weight, it doesn't matter whether you are 15 stone or 5 stone. It doesn't matter. You're going to have those urges potentially. So, guys, lay off the ladies if they're having those urges. It's not all in their head. It's not them just being greedy. We need to have a little bit of understanding and realize that there's a massive shower of hormones cascading through the body. Our job is to be supportive, give back rubs, foot rubs, get a hot water bottle, and give them chocolate. Basically, I think that's the extent of our role, and don't judge. So we've mentioned some hormones in the past, and one we've touched on before is serotonin. So estrogen regulates serotonin, and it is a neurotransmitter that controls your mood, and it reduces your appetite. So whenever your estrogen levels drop before your period, so do your levels of serotonin. Again, this causes an increase in your appetite. So if you're low in serotonin, it can cause an increase in sugar cravings, and this is due to the fact that high carb foods basically help your body produce serotonin. So those sweet, sugary, carby things, that tends to be why we go for that. When serotonin is low, your brain will crave more sugar, and as already stated, consuming high sugar foods cause extra calorie consumption, which will inevitably lead to weight gain. Unfortunately, it's calories in, calories out again. Doesn't matter. Unfortunately, physics doesn't care. I know there's biology going on, but physics doesn't care. If you're taking an extra energy, then you are going to put on weight. If you don't use that energy, you don't need it. So another factor at play as well is your metabolic rate. This will fluctuate throughout your menstrual cycle. So when it increases, your body's expending more energy, but you also might have an increased appetite and crave foods that are higher in calories and sugar for no real obvious reason. So your metabolic rate's going to be all over the place potentially. So it's another thing to think about if you're trying to track your calories around that time of the month. It's not going to be as predictable and as obvious as the other 3 weeks or so. And the last one when it comes to your cycle is bloating. So bloating is a big one. I think everybody's aware of that one, even us guys who are oblivious to most things when it comes to ladies. When you bloat during your period, it can feel like you've gained a few pounds maybe. You can tell me if that's not the case, but so I believe. Even though true weight gain, i.e. fat gain, hasn't actually occurred, so we've touched on that already, your clothes can feel tighter and more uncomfortable due to some of the reasons already mentioned, water retention, etc. However, hormonal changes can also lead to a buildup of gas in your gastrointestinal tract and cause bloating. So this bloating causes a tight, swollen feeling in your abdomen and other areas, as we've touched on already. So stomach cramps can also give you the impression that you've gained weight, which are caused by prostaglandins that we've touched on above as well. And these chemicals make your uterus contract and shed its lining, which causes abdominal pain, often associated with your period. So that feeling, some people get in their back, some people get in their front. Bloating can start about 5 days before your period and continue into menstruation for a few days. So you're talking like a week here almost. So stomach cramps last for a few days, which begin 1 to 2 days before your period. So some of the things to be aware of, just some of the science behind it and what's happening. Even ladies, I guess, you're the ones who experience it, but maybe for us guys, we need to know what's going on as well, so we can be a bit more understanding, and that we can, as PTs as well, support and not judge, and make your PT aware of it. Don't have to make a big issue of it, and you don't have to be embarrassed about it, and your PT shouldn't be there to help make you get embarrassed about it, and he shouldn't draw attention to it if you don't want to. But they're important factors, they're important things to think about whenever it comes to your body composition and your fitness and weight loss goals. So what can you do? So this is the part where me being a man is going to give you advice on being a woman, which is never going to end well, is it? But hear me out. I'm trying to do my best here. I'm trying to help as I step back from the mic. But drink more water, and we've touched on that, but it seems like an obvious one. If you're dehydrated, your body will hold on to more fluid, so it's really important to drink extra water around the time of your menstruation. So like we said, if you're hungry, drink more water. And it doesn't make sense, but the more fluid, as you hold on to fluid, the more water you drink, the less fluid you retain. Doesn't make sense, does it? But that's how it works. Another one is just buy healthy, low-calorie foods, so snacks that are going to be nutritious, so nutritionally dense. So whenever cravings come, it's best to have high nutritious foods like fruit, high-protein yogurts, nuts, things like that you can readily snack on instead of the usual, Maltesers, Galaxy chocolate. I'm getting hungry thinking about them. All that stuff. Another thing to think about are magnesium supplements. So I'm not a GP, I'm not a pharmacist, I'm not prescribing it, but have a chat to your GP if you want to start taking some magnesium supplements. The reason being, magnesium supplements have been shown to help decrease water retention, bloating, sugar cravings, and even in some cases emotional issues to some degree. Might work better for some people than others, but it's worth thinking about. It's worth having a chat to your GP. I'm sure they'll love you contacting them about something like this in the current world. But just don't take it from me to start that. Another one is to move more. So walk, move around, and help prevent a build-up of fluid in the first place. So sweat, whenever you produce sweat from intense exercise, it can also help reduce fluid retention. Now, it might be the last thing that you want to do if you're feeling particularly sore and bloated, etc. But do what you can, move as much as you can to whatever degree you can, and you should start to feel a little bit better. And on that note, just exercise more in general. And this is where I get to be a PT and stand on a PT soapbox and say regular exercise can reduce the severity of your symptoms. And again, me being a man, maybe not going to come across well, but that's what they say. That's what the studies are saying. It's saying even like 20-30 minutes each day can make a massive difference to how you feel. So if you feel like crap, you're not exercising, you're not moving, you're not taking your fitness seriously, you're going to feel like crap for 3 weeks of the month, and you're going to feel like extra crap for that 1 week. So get up, get moving, and exercise a little bit more whenever you can. How about reducing your sodium intake? So whenever you consume excessive sodium, it's a massive cause of water retention, fluid retention, and this is true whether you're a man or a woman, or whether you're on your period or not. If you avoid or you reduce your salt intake, for example, don't shake it onto your food whenever you don't need to, and if you avoid highly processed or fast foods which tend to be laced with salt, or like high sodium drinks, if you can avoid those, that's going to help with fluid retention, water retention. And maybe even trying to avoid sugar and caffeine. I know that sounds like the opposite of what we were chatting about above. Your body's telling you need sugar, and I'm telling you not to take it. But foods and drinks containing caffeine and sugar also increase your bloating. So you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot, as the old saying goes, whenever you take sugar or caffeine. So if you try and avoid these before your period, that's probably going to be a good plan as well. Now, me loving coffee and tea, it almost pains me to suggest that one, but apparently it works. Apparently it's a useful one. And even just identifying and then avoiding foods which produce extra gas. So everyone's different, and you might need to figure out which foods affect you worse. If you try to avoid these throughout the month and not just around the time of your period, you're probably going to avoid bloating as much as well. So I would say the usual suspects: beans, the old magical fruit, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts. Thankfully they're only about at Christmas, aren't they? So you can avoid them for 11 months of the year. But yeah, all those things, try them, see if they work. If they do, let me know. If they don't, let me know. So the third issue that women come up against that men do not is something called the pill. I think that's the technical term for it. That's all you ever hear people talking about anyway. But in 2009, this is a really interesting one. In 2009, Stephen Reichman, an exercise physiologist at Texas A&M University, conducted a study on how a person's genetic makeup can affect their ability to grow their muscles through exercise. What he discovered was that women in the study who were on the pill gained 40% less muscle than women who weren't on the pill. So the womanly, kind of typical hourglass figure emerges as different kinds of fat tissue. They respond differently to these reproductive hormones. For example, subcutaneous fat, the kind of fat that women carry around in their thighs, hips, breasts, they contain lots of estrogen receptors. So it's not difficult to see how changing a woman's hormone balance could alter where the fat is stored in the first place. So research has demonstrated this. There's a study in 1988, so quite a while ago, which found that women who were on pills which contained higher levels of estrogen were more likely to have pear-shaped bodies and increased subcutaneous fat. However, they didn't necessarily have a higher overall body fat percentage. So that's quite an interesting one. So I know we'd like to think that we're genetically predisposed to looking at a certain size or shape, but this study is actually suggesting that if you're on the pill, you're more likely going to have a pear-shaped body. So I don't know. I haven't put it to the test. I haven't been brave enough to ask women that, because it seems like a really good way to shorten your life. But as I already mentioned, that swollen feeling which happens due to estrogen, it influences the way your body metabolizes water, and this is due to the production of certain proteins in the kidneys. So that causes your body to retain more fluid than usual. The fluid then seeps into fat cells, causing them to expand, and women naturally tend to store more fat in their hips, breasts and thighs. So it's in these areas that the swelling increases the most. So like we already said above, so that's something that guys know nothing about, right? We don't think of those things. We just tend to like to think of things in really simple terms, and we tend to store fat wherever. But this is saying that the pill has an influence. Now how much of an influence is, I guess there hasn't been that many studies following up on this. If that one's from 1988, and if there are other ones out there, I'd be glad to read them. I'd be glad to have a look at them. But there's a massive factor here whereby the pill is influencing where you store your fat. So if you're kind of beating yourself up over where your body fat is spread to, don't blame your parents, blame the pill potentially, is what I'm saying. But the main thing is optimal health, right? So it's found that even if their overall body fat percentage wasn't any higher or any lower than other women, it was just settled in different places. That's kind of the way it went. But as long as you are at a healthy range and you're not in an unhealthy range, I wouldn't worry too much about it, right? So what can you do about that one? I guess research other types of contraceptive methods if the pill is something that you're not happy with your size or shape, but research other types of contraceptive methods. And again, I'm not the person to ask, but chat to your GP or your pharmacist, and they might be able to recommend other pills or even other forms of contraceptive if that's something that you are not happy with the effect it's having on your body. The next issue, this is a big one, we're going to chat about is menopause. So perimenopause, menopause, and postmenopause. We're going to think about what those things are. You might know, have a rough idea of what menopause is, but we're going to talk about the different phases and different stages and what that means and what it implies for a woman's body and how that impacts her fat loss. So if you're currently going through menopause, there is an article on the Cross Functional Fitness website that you can have a look at that will give you more detailed information, and we'll maybe talk about it specifically in an episode coming up, so we'll not go into too much detail. Basically, it comes in 3 different stages. Perimenopause, so the body begins to produce less estrogen, and this continues until the final 1 to 2 years of perimenopause before hormone levels drop rapidly, and this can begin up to 10 years before you actually enter menopause. Often begins in your 40s, but some women will enter perimenopause in their 30s. Then menopause, it's defined as occurring 12 months from your last menstrual period. This marks the end of menstrual cycles, and this happens in your 40s or 50s, average age being 51 in the West, believe it or not. Postmenopause, some symptoms include hot flushes, they'll usually decrease. Other health concerns can arise, such as heart disease and osteoporosis, and that is due to the decrease in estrogen levels. Strength training is obviously a massive help with preventing this. And there's usually 2 main culprits whenever it comes to weight gain, which we'll chat about. So the first one is insulin sensitivity. Decreased insulin sensitivity, also referred to as insulin resistance. It means that your body's less sensitive to the effects of insulin. So this means that your cells, they'll not take up blood glucose as effectively, and this leaves higher amounts of glucose in circulation, eventually being stored as fat. So while this occurs naturally with aging, also happens in men, it's not just women, it seems to become more noticeable, especially during and after menopause. The second one is carbohydrate resistance. So carbohydrate tolerance describes your body's ability to use carbs. So carbohydrate tolerance describes the amount of carbohydrates your body needs every day at any one time and at which times during the day. Carbohydrate tolerance and insulin sensitivity will vary with the hormonal situation in your body. During and post-menopause, your body becomes much more prone to storing fat, and you may experience lower energy from external stresses such as alcohol, not getting enough sleep, and stress. So what can you do about it? Again, you have to let nature take its course, right? At least I don't know any other solutions to it, but you're probably going to lose bone density during menopause. It does happen. That's generally a symptom of it, and some women, especially if it runs in your family, this is a greater concern because then you can start getting osteoporosis related fractures, things like that. So ensuring you've got enough calcium, vitamin D, and of course incorporating strength training. I don't mean getting little resistance bands. I don't mean go for a walk, walking up a hill. I mean proper strength training. I mean strength training like that is going to actually be trainable, that you're going to see a progression, you're going to actually see a marked improvement in your strength, that it's not just, you're not just going to tick the box, right? That's what I mean. Also including some sort of hypertrophy training to increase muscle mass, and again strength training will do that, providing you're eating the right foods in the right amounts. So this will help shape your body more than just fat loss alone. So fat loss, you can lose fat and end up looking like a shriveled, dried up raisin, or you can do some weight training, resistance training, and you can pad out underneath that skin. That's going to dramatically change how your body feels and looks. So your experience of menopause will be completely unique. Comparison, it's completely pointless and unhelpful. So if you have a friend who's like, oh, I didn't sleep a wink last night, flipping hot flushes and was just roasting and I couldn't sleep, couldn't get comfortable, don't say, oh, I've got the menopause at the minute as well and I'm sleeping great. That's not helpful. It's a bit like women comparing labour experiences, and one woman will say, oh, it was horrendous. It was like landing, the D-Day landings. It was like the start. It was like Pearl Harbor and Saving Private Ryan all rolled into one. That's how horrendous it was. Nightmares. And then someone else was like, oh, it's grand. Don't really, I didn't have complaints. It was fine. Not helpful, is it? It's really not helpful. So don't compare, especially if your experience is great and something else is terrible. It's not really helpful. If you find something that happened to help your symptoms, do share that. That's obviously going to be useful. I would say reducing stress as much as possible as well. So stress hormones will amplify the effects of menopause, and walking seems like a really obvious one, but it's really really good for your mental state as well as physically getting your steps in and expending energy. And then the severity, this is something to bear in mind, the severity and the impact will not last forever. Okay, it might seem like you're in it forever, it might seem like a long time, but it will pass. And just use it as a reminder to take care of yourself and to look after your health, and to use it as a bit of like a warning light coming on the dashboard, or like the service light coming on saying, listen, you need to start taking better care of yourself. You need to get serviced every, few hundred miles instead of a few thousand miles. Again, you can't stop nature. It's going to happen. So it's just trying to deal with the symptoms and deal with the outcomes from it. The next issue is comparison. Now, we all do it. Like, guys do it as well, but I think girls are especially wired to do it. It's not just an issue that women combat. You look, you assess, you compare, and then you beat yourself up, right? We all think she's looking fantastic and I'm looking a mess. But at the end of the day, there's no winners. Whenever you compare yourself to others, you were designed with unique, special talents, gifts, abilities, strengths, weaknesses, and how you look. It's just how you're made. And sometimes you compare yourself to someone who has better hair than you and you feel bad. Sometimes you compare yourself to someone who's more out of shape than you are to make yourself feel better. And other times you compare your skin, your cellulite, where you store your body fat, your height, your weight, your tan, your face, all those sort of things, right? I'm pointing out the obvious here, but like, we all do it, right? Sometimes it makes you feel good about yourself, and sometimes it makes you feel really bad. Most of the time it makes you feel bad, right? If I'm wrong, let me know. 100% of the time it's a waste of time, and it damages you and others psychologically, and it changes how you interact with people and how you treat them, even how you treat yourself, how you think about yourself and how you think about others. And I get that there's some occasions where comparison can lead to a healthy change, so it can inspire you to be like, oh, that girl in the gym's really strong, she's in incredible shape, and then you want to become like that. Not me, you obviously, because you're a lady that's listening to this. I don't want to become like the girl in the gym. Just to point that out. So it can become inspirational, or it can elevate your level of competitiveness. It can really make you feel like, you want to raise your game a bit, or you want to just eat that little bit better. You want to try and program in recovery a bit more, or just push yourself a little bit more in the weights, excel in your sport, or just in your lifestyle. It's sometimes a very fine line, and one which needs to be kept on a tight leash. Otherwise, it starts to control your thoughts, and it starts to damage your relationships, harms your self-esteem, and then also your unique sense of purpose. So what can you do about it? Well, this is where I go all sagely and wise and give out advice. It's easier to say than do, obviously, but practicing gratitude regularly, like every day. So just reflecting every day on the fact that you are unique, your body is unique, and you have different physical capacity and potential than anybody else. You're going to have strengths like I do, you're going to have weaknesses like I do, you're going to have genetic differences to others, and I guess learning to accept and appreciate your own body is a really good starting point. So just appreciating, listen, if you've got 2 arms and 2 legs, you're blessed, right? Focusing on your own performance. So instead of looking at what others look like or how fit someone else is or what their body could do, focus on yourself, focus on improving yourself instead of looking at somebody else. Instead of just trying to be as good as them or as on their level, how about just trying to be the best you can be? And you might actually surpass them. You might actually raise your game higher than where they're at. So you concentrate on your own level of performance and your own workouts and try to get the most out of every workout. Be consistent, and then you'll be rewarded. And then just simply learn to like applaud other people's achievements. So whenever you witness other people excelling, doing well, take the time to congratulate them, get to know, let them know how well they're doing, be an encourager, and you'll be amazed at how this can free you up and how you can then start to focus on your own fitness and use it as a healthy motivation rather than letting it rot away in your mind or discouraging you. Does that make sense? The last, well, it's probably not the last, but there's more issues as well that women have to deal with that men do not. One of them is unrealistic expectations. Ladies probably more than men, again, not exclusively, but they seem to be coming under more and more pressure to external influences or from external influences which tell them that their body should be this way or that way. And social media is a huge driver of that. There's actually a study that was leaked this week from Facebook and Instagram that basically admitted, but obviously don't want to say this out loud or answer questions about it, but they admitted that how toxic Instagram is, especially for girls, young girls as well, teenage girls, and how bad it is for their mental health, how bad it is for their all sorts of reasons. And it's worth looking up actually that, because it just shows you that they've basically set themselves up and geared themselves to become addictive, and whatever way that can be achieved, if they can keep eyeballs on their product, then they're going to make money from adverts, and they're going to make money from for their investors. So it's something to think about. It doesn't matter whether it's Instagram, Pinterest, Facebook, YouTube. They're all there. We all use them, right? But it's not to kind of demonize them all, but you have to be really careful. The internet in general. And then it used to be trashy magazines. It used to be like your OK magazines, and I don't even know. There's all sorts of crap out now. You see them in the airports, don't you? You see them in the magazine section if you have to go down that way sometimes in the shops. There just seems to be an unrelenting bombardment of images, captions, and they tell women and men that this is the ideal, or they shame people. They shame certain men. Say an actor get into great shape for a film role, and then he's let loose a bit when he's not filming, and they're trying to fat shame him. They're trying to say this about him, and it's even worse for women, right? Has been for quite a while. And then aside from all the blindly obvious fact that every woman, every man is an individual, and trying to be somebody else is utterly ridiculous. Whenever we ponder it for a moment, there's another massive issue. It's called Photoshop, right? Not only are comparisons to real life people a curse, as discussed in the previous points, but whenever you compare yourself to a photoshopped image, it's even more disturbing. I was making fun of the before and after photos of sometimes transformations, and that's true. Sometimes not even Photoshop, but just shading, and if we could go into that one, that's another episode. We're so taken in though, and we're taken in really quickly by our sight, and automatically we make assumptions based upon what we see, even if it is absurd and or a subtle optical illusion in the form of a selfie. We happen to be taken in by it. As the funny quip goes, of course she can't look like the fitness influencer on Instagram. She doesn't even look like herself. It's so true though, isn't it? Her team have carefully chosen the right level of contrast and structure and brightness, warmth, saturation, sharpness. They've got a professional photographer to do all these sorts of things, and they take it from the right angles to represent her looking her very, 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 very best, even if it's slightly artificial. But it's not actually her. If you saw her down the beach, yeah, she probably looks okay. She probably looks fine, but they really take it to another level, right? And then you're looking at that and thinking, "Oh, she's amazing. Wish I looked like that." And then in your mind, you glance at it, and you see those really impressive aspects, and then your heart sinks, and you think, "Oh," you feel a bit worthless, and you instinctively start comparing your reality to her fantasy, or her fallacy, I should say. So it's a really, really dangerous one. It's a subtle one, and it sort of invades us without even thinking about it. You always have to be on your guard, because no matter what you're looking at, you have to bear this in mind. Whenever you're seeing someone, again, especially a social media influencer, and even people who are amateurs, like we've all gotten so good at using filters and Snapchat and Instagram and all, right? There's some who just take away your blemishes and make you look like as if your skin of a baby. You've got no blemishes, no spots, no wrinkles, no creases, and it's kind of scary, isn't it? How unlike us. If you're always, some people, they're always taking those sort of photos, and then someone's seen them down the street, they probably wouldn't even recognise them. So what can you do about this? Well, there's several things. First of all is do your research in order to avoid setting yourself up for disappointment. It's really helpful to know kind of what's realistic and what isn't. What's a realistic objective, and what isn't. Don't just go by what fitness models or Instagrammers are telling you. Check out real sources, check out professionals. There's people come to me for advice on fitness and say what am I capable of, and they'll maybe set a goal, or they just don't really know what a goal is, what sort of appropriate goal there is to set. So I'd have to try and advise them, saying it's possible to put on this amount of muscle in so much time. It's possible to lose this amount of fat in this amount of time if everything's on point and you're creating the perfect conditions for it. Probably not going to happen because we all live in real life. So we'll set realistic goals. We're not going to set like kind of fairy tale goals. And then the other thing to think about is your own unique body. You have potential and you can get better where you're at, but it doesn't mean you're going to look like that person there. Like, you're not going to start looking like Kim Kardashian's backside because you do some squats, or you do some lunges or some hip thrusts or some deadlifts. Maybe your gym has plastic surgeons, but this one certainly doesn't. The other thing is professional help. So if you chat to a reliable personal trainer who has experience, who doesn't focus on quick fixes, who has a track record of working with people for a long time and building relationships and helping them improve their health, they'll be able to help you set realistic goals for yourself, which you can aim for, and then you can smash them. And if you live, this is a shameless plug, but if you live in the Warrenpoint area or near area, we are here for you. Give us a call. There's myself, there's Jack. Get in touch, and we would love to see if we can help you, whatever your goal is. Next one is delete Instagram. I'm only joking, in case they try and sue me. Of course you wouldn't delete Instagram. Cross-functional fitness is on there, so there's some really good stuff there and you don't want to miss out on. But seriously, if you see an Instagram fitness influencers every day and it's making you unhappy or dissatisfied with yourself or your own progress or your level of fitness, then it might be wise to just delete that from your feed, at least for a while, to see how it affects your mood and your mindset. Check your family, see if they notice an improvement in your mood. But seriously, consider putting restraints on some of these social media things, because if it's causing your unhappiness or it's causing you to feel down on yourself, or just to be unhappy, or it's affecting your relationships, it might be worth just getting rid of it for a while. It's now time for our News of the Week article, and this one made a bit of a ripple this week. It was out a couple of days ago. It was in quite a few of the news outlets and papers, and it was a study which said that physical activity may paradoxically hasten build-up of heart attack risk factor. Scary title, right? Now this is the British Medical Journal's reporting on it. I'm not sure I don't think they conducted it. It was actually the journal Heart which conducted it. So, linked to calcium deposits in coronary arteries being used to measure cardiovascular disease risk, but findings don't outweigh numerous health benefits of exercise, emphasise researchers. So, I'm just going to read out a few lines here from the British Medical Journal's take on it. So, physical activity may paradoxically hasten the build-up of calcium deposits, plaque, in the coronary arteries, the amount of which is used to assess future cardiovascular disease risk. Finds research published online in the journal Heart, but the findings don't outweigh the numerous health benefits of exercise, emphasise the researchers. The coronary artery calcium score, or CSC score for short, is used to guide treatment to ward off heart attack or stroke. Statins are indicated for most people with a CSA score of 100 or above. Regular physical activity is associated with a dose-dependent reduction in the risk of obesity, diabetes, heart attack, stroke, and death, among other things. But the research shows that despite these important health benefits, people who are very physically active seem to have high levels of calcium deposits in their coronary arteries. So it's not clear if exercise may itself be associated with calcification, artery hardening. So it seems like a pretty drastic study, doesn't it? It seems like a scary outcome, and if you're physically active and maybe you don't know any better, you might just read that and go, oh, better dial it back a bit, or maybe you shouldn't be running, or maybe you shouldn't be lifting weights, or maybe you shouldn't be doing this or that. So there's 25,000 people in the study, over 22,000 men and 2,744 women. So significantly a lot more men. Now, just off the top of my head, without actually looking this up and researching it, I'm going to say that men tend to be more prone to heart attacks and diseases than women. Could be wrong. If I'm wrong, do correct me on that, but I think that's just a hunch. So they're all aged at least 30 and it had at least 2 coronary artery calcification scores, CSC scores, and that were included in the final analysis. Now, there's a couple of issues here, and this is what you have to watch with journals, and especially reports on journals in newspapers and journalists. Most of the time, you cannot trust a single word they say. I said it during the week. Somebody shared this story. Melanie shared it in the Facebook group, and I made the point that you cannot trust virtually a single word a journalist says when it comes to fitness, comes to health, or it comes to nutrition, because they are out to do one thing. They're there to get clicks. They're there to get you to buy the newspaper. They're there to get interest and then manipulate you. So if they can scare you, you're going to be easier to manipulate, and you're going to be easier to influence. And at the end of the day, it's about revenue. It's about creating revenue for themselves. So there's a lot of dishonest journalism out there. There's more dishonest journalism than there is honest journalism these days. It used to be you turn on the news and it would give you a kind of down the line angle on whatever it was being reported, whereas now it's just propaganda from somewhere. So something you have to watch whenever there are journals, and they seem to have quite a sensationalist finding, or a newspaper's reporting on it, is the limitations. So whenever the researchers cite limitations, all the things to look out for are conflicts of interest. So if they're paid off by, say these guys were paid off by, I don't know, Netflix, so you just have to sit in your ass more and watch Netflix and don't exercise. I'm not saying that that's the case, but that'll be an example of a conflict of interest. So one of the things here that they're trying to talk about is the need to consider that engaging in physical activity may accelerate the progression of coronary calcium, possibly due to plaque healing, stabilisation and calcifications. Now, so one of the limitations they actually cite here is the fact that they haven't really clarified what exercise involves. They haven't really given us a clear definition of what exercise these people were doing. Were they walking? Were they running? And it's not, as I say, it's an observational study, so they haven't actually established a cause. Okay, they also, some of the limitations saying they've no objective assessment of physical activity. So were they just like playing tiddlywinks, were they playing chess, were they going for golf, just having coffee and lifting their arm up, sipping coffee? What was the exercise they were doing? So it's not giving us a clear definition. So therefore, to say that excessive exercise causes risk of heart disease is so dishonest when it comes to journalism. They should actually be prosecuted to some degree, because it's just crazy. And the message that sends out, especially after last week's episode, that's talking about obesity and the crisis of obesity and the pandemic of obesity that's happening around the world, especially in the West. Now they're putting out headlines this week telling people not to exercise. That's essentially what they're saying. Don't exercise. You might get a heart attack. We have to bear in mind that genetics play a huge role when it comes to cholesterol, when it comes to heart attacks, heart disease. Those are huge factors, and as I said here, this is an observational study, and as such can't establish cause. So to put out this title, and then for news outlets to report on it as if it's it's done and dusted, it's the gospel, and that we should adhere to it, it's just absolutely crazy. There's over 100 years of research, there's thousands of studies done about how great exercise is for us, and instead of journalists trying to be a little bit honest, clever, responsible, and saying how can we fit this into the whole body of research, what is this telling us, or just simply saying we need to look into this more, they've tried to almost scare people out of exercising, which most people don't need convinced not to exercise. It's just crazy. So that's my take on the news of the week this week. If you have any thoughts on it, I'd be glad to hear them. Alright, and now it is time for the joke of the week. And this week's joke is kindly provided by Alan. I'm going to read it out, but Alan gave it to me the other day in the Total Body Toning class. I thought it was quite good, so I'm going to share it, and if you don't like it, send your complaints to Alan. What do you call a guy who has no shins? Tony. That's good, isn't it? Remember, if you don't like it, send your complaints to Alan. So that's it, end of another show, almost the end of the month. I hope you've enjoyed this one. If you have, Do like, do share, do subscribe. If you think it can benefit someone you know, again, share it with them. Hopefully there's something in here that will help them and clear up a few issues or debunk a few myths for them. But we're going to be back again next week. If you have any questions or you have any comments, do send them in. info@crossfunctionalfitness.co.uk. We're on Spotify, we're on Apple Podcasts, and we're on YouTube. So until next time, have a great weekend, and make sure you train today so you can be stronger tomorrow.